Hello everyone. So we were discussing about the tissues. So in previous class we studied about the meristematic tissue as well as the permanent tissue. In permanent tissue we came to know about the structure and functions of the parenchyma, collenchyma as well as the sclerenchyma. So in today's session we will discuss about the complex permanent tissues. So, the complex permanent tissue, it's a collection of different types of cells that help in the performance of the common function. Okay, so the complex permanent tissues are composed of the several kinds of cells and perform a common function. So, its main function is conducting water and mineral salts from the root to top of the plant. So, it consists of two types, xylem as well as phloem. Xylem, the water conducting tissue, and the phloem, the food conducting tissue. They are together known as vascular tissues, and they are found together in distinct formation inside the stem of many plants, and they are known as vascular bundles. Okay, so we will discuss about xylem and phloem in this class. Okay, so the first one, that is xylem. So what is xylem? It is a water conducting tissue. Okay, so this xylem was first introduced by Nagli in 1858. So the xylem is complex permanent tissue. It is also a vascular tissue consisting a part of vascular bundle. It is a conducting tissue. Okay, so xylem is a conducting tissue. It conducts the water and minerals in plants. So the origin of the xylem, on the basis of the origin and development, two kinds of xylem are recognized. Okay, so on the basis of origin and development, there are two types of xylems. They are primary xylem as well as the secondary xylem. The primary xylem originating from the procambium of the apical meristem, and the secondary xylem originating from the vascular cambium. Coming to the components of the xylem. Xylem is a heterogeneous tissue. Okay, so it is composed of four different kinds of cell elements. Okay, mainly that is tracheids, trachea, it is also known as vessels. Okay, and the xylem fibers and the xylem parenchyma. Xylem parenchyma is nothing but the wood parenchyma. Among these, the first three are dead components. Okay, they are tracheids, vessels, and xylem fibers. Okay, they are dead component. And then the fourth one, that is the xylem parenchyma. It is a living component. Okay, it's a living tissue. So we will study one by one. That is, first one is tracheids. So these tracheids are primitive water conducting cells found in pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and few primitive angiosperms. Okay, they are primitive water conducting cells found in pteridophytes, gymnosperms, as well as they are also found in primitive angiosperms. Coming to the origin of the tracheids originate from the row of meristematic cells of procambium and the vascular cambium. So they originate from the meristematic cells of procambium as well as the vascular cambium. So you can see the structure of the tracheid here. So these tracheids are elongated tube-like cells with more or less pointed, or they are having slant ends. The end walls are with pitted and they perform like a plates. They are smaller than the trachea and measure about 1 mm to 120 mm in length. The cell walls are hard and they are thick lignified. Okay, the cell walls are very hard, thick and lignified. The secondary walls of the tracheids show various types of lignin thickening. Okay, so based on the lignin thickening deposition, there are five types of tracheids in plants. They are angular tracheids, spiral tracheids, scleriform tracheid, reticulate tracheid, as well as the pitted tracheids. So there are five types of tracheids. They are angular tracheid, spiral tracheid, scleriform tracheid, reticulate tracheid, as well as pitted tracheids. Okay, so the area of the primary wall and the middle lamella present in between the palli of the pits is called the pit membrane. Okay, so the pit membrane of the broader pits develop in swelling in the middle called torus, so it helps in the regulation of the momentum of the substances. So the coming to the functions of the tracheids, these tracheids help in upward conduction of the water and minerals from the root to the stem of the leaves. The lignified cells of the secondary walls of the tracheids are impermeable to water, hence the water passes through the end of the walls of the pits, or you can call it as the plates. Okay, so these pits or plates have only primary walls. They are pit membranes with permeable water conducting tissues. So the thick rigid walls of the tracheids also provide the mechanical support. Okay, so this was about the tracheids. So the next one we will study is, that is, vessels. So these vessels are present in angiosperms. They are much elongated cylindrical tube-like structure with hard thickening lignified walls and wide lumen. Okay, they are found in almost angiosperms except in few primitive angiosperms. So these vessels also occur in some pteridophytes, example Selaginella. Okay, so you will see these vessels in Selaginella. Also you will see it in Netum, that is gymnosperm. Coming to the origin of the trachea, that is vessel. So xylem vessels originate from the meristematic cells of procambium of the apical meristem and the meristematic cells of the vascular cambium. So the meristematic cells are elongate and are placed end to the end. So it is followed by the dissolution of the cross walls and disintegration of the protoplast. The partition of the walls of these cells are either perforated or disappear altogether, resulting in the elongated tube. So these elongated cylindrical tubes or vessels or trachea formed are arranged to perform a vertical broad canals similar to the water pipes, okay, for conduction of the water and the minerals. As the vessels are performed as the vessels are formed, the strength giving lignin deposited on the secondary walls differently. The lignin deposition may be in the form of rings. Okay, so the lignin, it is a substance. So this substance deposition may be in the form of rings, a spiral network, like ladder like structures. So in some of the vessels, the major portion of the secondary walls are thickened with the lignin. Okay, so based on the lignin deposition, again there are five types of vessels in the plants. They are angular vessels, spiral vessels, scleriform vessels, as well as reticulate vessels, and also the pitted vessels, same as in tracheids. Okay, so in tracheids also angular tracheid, spiral tracheid, scleriform tracheid, reticulate tracheid, and pitted tracheids are there. Same in vessels also, that is trachea, they are also same, only the vessels and tracheids are different. Okay, so the angular vessels, spiral vessels, scleriform vessels, reticulate vessels, and pitted vessels are five different types of vessels are there based on the deposition of the lignin. Okay, so coming to the structure of the vessel now. So here you will see the structure of the vessel. So these vessels are rows of elongated cylindrical tube like structure with hard and thick lignified walls and wide lumen. So they measure about 2 to 140 mm in length, but the vessels measuring a length about 2 meters. Okay, so in eucalyptus vessels are about 6 meters in length. The mature vessels are devoid of protoplast, so therefore they are dead. The lumen or cavity in the vessel is very large. They appear polygonal in dicots and round in the monocots in cross section. The functions of the trachea are: the xylem vessels are main water conducting elements of the xylem. The vessels with thick lignified walls are much adapted for the upward translocation of the water and mineral salts from the roots to the stem and leaves. they also provide mechanical support of the plants. So coming to the phloem fibers, okay. So the phloem fibers, they are sclerenchymatous fibers associated with the xylem. So it is also called as wood fibers. The structure of the xylem fibers, these are slender spindle shaped or dead cells. So they are slender, spindle shaped, and they are dead cells. The cells are with or without protoplast, okay. So the cells are with or without protoplast. Instead, there is a very narrow lumen, almost obliterated, okay. The cell is very thick and hard and lignified here, okay. The two main types of xylem fibers are reported. They are fiber tracheids and libriform fibers. The fiber tracheids are reported from the primary xylem. They are intermediate form between the typical fibers and tracheids, okay. So the libriform fibers are narrow and highly thickened secondary walls. The central lumen is most obliteratedly uh, and then they are very simple. They are reported from the secondary xylem. Coming to the functions of the xylem fibers are chiefly mechanical in function, okay. They are helping mechanical functions. They provide strength as well as rigidity, support to the plant organs. The next one, that is xylem parenchyma. So the xylem parenchyma, it is also known as wood parenchyma. So the parenchyma cells closely associated with the other elements of the xylem is known as the xylem parenchyma. The parenchyma cells which are closely associated with the xylem, that is known as xylem parenchyma. So they are on living cells. They are living cells. So they originate from the meristematic cells of the procambium of the apical meristem. In secondary xylem, they occur in two forms. Axial parenchyma, it is derived from the fusiform initial of the vascular cambium. Okay, so that is axial parenchyma. So the second one, that is ray parenchyma. So it is formed from the ray initials of the vascular cambium. Coming to the structure of the xylem parenchyma, the cells are more or less cylindrical or placed end to end. So you will see the structure of xylem parenchyma here. So they are placed end to end. They are more or less cylindrical. Okay. So the cells may be in thin walled. Okay. The cells are thin walled or thick walled with a simple pits. Okay, so you will see the pits in the xylem parenchyma. The cells are living with protoplast and well developed functions with the nucleus. Since the cells are associated with the xylem parenchyma is also known as the wood parenchyma. Okay, so cells are compactly arranged here. So in xylem parenchyma, the cells are compactly arranged. The parenchyma cells in secondary xylem extend into the lumen of the xylem vessels and they appear like button or balloons. So these are called as styloses, which hinder the ascent of sap, that is upward momentum of the water. The cells of the axial parenchyma are somewhat elongated. The cells attached end to end and lie in vertical line, while the ray parenchyma cells occur in radial transfer series. Okay, coming to the functions of the xylem parenchyma now. So they help in water conducting and also the solutes. Okay, they store food minerals in the form of starch and fats. The tannins, crystals, and various other substances may also occur in this cells. So they mainly help in water conducting and also they help in solutes. Okay, so there are types of xylem now. So there are two types of xylem, that is the primary xylem as well as the secondary xylem. The primary xylem is called as the protoxylem. later formed primary xylem, that is a metaxylem. Okay, so in the primary xylem there are again two types, that is endarch as well as exarch. What is endarch now? Endarch, that endarch is present in stem. Here the protoxylem, which lies towards the pith region. Okay, here the protoxylem is towards the pith and the metaxylem is towards the periphery, that is termed as endarch. Now the exarch. Exarch is present in the roots. Here the metaxylem is towards the center and the protoxylem is towards the periphery, that is known as exarch. Coming to the second one, that is secondary xylem. So these are formed due to the action of the vascular cambium and responsible for increasing the girth of the plant. The cells that cut off towards the pith during maturity into the secondary xylem, there are again two types. Okay, so the secondary xylem, which is formed during spring and autumn season, which constitutes annual ring. Due from this annual ring we can count the age of the plant or tree. Coming to the functions of the xylem. Okay, so the functions of the xylem, they help mainly in conducting of the water as well as the solutes. Also they store food materials in the form of starch, fats, tannins, crystals or various substances may also occur in this cells. Okay, so these xylem also they help in mechanical support. They provide strength, rigidity and support to the plant organs. Okay, so they help in upward conduction of the water and minerals from the root to the stem of the leaves. Okay, then the basic function, that is they help in transportation of the water as well as the some soluble nutrients. So this was all about the xylem and xylem elements. Okay, so now we will come towards the phloem tissue. So like xylem, phloem is also a complex tissue. Okay, so it is also a complex permanent tissue, but is a living tissue. It is the another vascular tissue present in the vascular bundle. So the phloem is a principal food conducting tissue in the plants and commonly known as bast. Okay, BAST, bast. Okay, it is commonly known as bast. So there are two types of phloem: primary phloem as well as secondary phloem. The primary phloem is produced by the procambium of the apical meristem and the secondary xylem is produced from the vascular cambium. Coming to the components of the phloem, the phloem has four components: sieve elements, which consist of sieve tubes as well as sieve cells. Okay, sieve elements, companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers, which is also known as phloem sclerenchyma. Among these, the phloem parenchyma, companion cells as well as the sieve elements are living component, and the phloem sclerenchyma, that is a phloem fibers, it's a dead component. Okay, so we will study one by one. That is first one, that is sieve elements, that is the sieve tubes as well as the sieve cells. So what are sieve elements? Sieve elements were discovered by Hartge in 1837 as the conducting elements in the phloem. The sieve elements include sieve cells as well as sieve tubes. So the sieve cells, they are narrow, elongated cells with tapering ends. These cells have sieve areas. Okay, sieve areas means perforated area throughout the lateral walls and the end walls. They occur in pteridophytes and gymnosperms where they are arranged end to end in longitudinal axis of the plant. The sieve tubes, these are resemble of the xylem vessels in beginning, tube-like structures. Okay, they were tube-like structures. They occur in the angiosperms and form the main phloem elements. Okay, they form the main part of the phloem elements. So the origin of the sieve elements, the meristematic cells divide longitudinally to form two cells. One cell resulting, that is a large one, forms the sieve tube member and the other one forms the companion cells. Okay, so basically the meristematic cells divide into longitudinally to form two cells. From that, one cell originates as the sieve element, as well as the second one originate from the as the companion cell. Okay, so the precursor of the sieve element grow in the length cytoplasm and becomes more and more vacuolated. The nucleus the nucleus this generates at the maturity of the sieve tube, but the cytoplasm retain its maturity. At the maturity, the cell wall of the sieve tube may slightly become thick due to the deposition of the pectin, and the sieve pore become cellulose. Okay, and it consists of the cellulose. Coming to the structure of the sieve tube, sieve tubes are long tube like structures arranged one above the other vertically. Each tube is made up of several cells called as sieve tube members. Okay, then the sieve tube members cells are living with the perforated oblique or transverse at the end walls. Okay, they are oblique end walls. Coming to the functions of the sieve elements or sieve cells, they are chiefly meant for food conducting elements of the phloem. They transport the prepared food materials such as carbohydrates and proteins in the downward direction to the roots, and they store the food materials, and as well as they move the food from the upward direction to the growing regions of the plants. The second one, that is companion cells. So these companion cells are parenchyma cells associated with the sieve tube cells in angiosperms. So these are absent in the pteridophytes as well as gymnosperms. They are present only in angiosperms. Okay, then the structure of the companion cells, they are elongated cells. They are thin-walled parenchymatous cells which lie on the sieve tube sides. Okay, so they are elongated, thin-walled, which lie side by side of the sieve elements. They are sister cells which are derived from the same mother cells. Okay, as I said, the meristematic cells divide into two cells from where the from the first cell the sieve elements will originate, from the second cell the companion cells originate, as the hence it is the sister cells. Okay, so in transverse section the companion cells appear as the small rounded triangular or rectangular cell adjacent to the sieve tube. The functions of the companion cells, they help the sieve tube in the conduction of the food materials. The nucleus of the companion cells controls the functioning of the sieve elements. These cells also play an important role in the maintenance of the pressure gradient in the sieve elements. Okay, so these companion cells also play an important role in the pressure gradients in the sieve tubes or sieve elements. The third one, phloem parenchyma. The third one is phloem parenchyma. So it is the ordinary parenchyma made up of a delicate cells which are intermingled with the sieve elements. Okay, they are present in both primary as well as the secondary phloem. It is present in most of the dicots and generally absent in monocots. Okay, the phloem parenchyma is present in dicots and absent in monocots. The structure of the phloem parenchyma, the cells are elongated, tapering to broadly cylindrical in shape. They are living cells with a distinct cytoplasm and nucleus. The cell wall is thin, composed of the cellulose in phloem parenchyma. The cell wall is thin and composed of cellulose. It has many pit fields. These pit are interconnected parenchyma cells and companion cells also form the connection between these pits, which are arranged towards the sieve elements. They also contain crystals, tannins, mucilage, and latex. The functions of the phloem parenchyma, these cells store organic food materials and other substances like starch, tannins, resins. They also helps in translocation of the food materials. The fourth one, that is phloem sclerenchyma. It is also known as the fibers. Okay, so it is also called as the bast fibers. These sclerenchyma fibers present in the primary and the secondary phloem are called phloem fibers. These fibers are commercially important. The bast fibers of the hemp, that is cannabis, that is also known as ganja, and flask, okay, that is known as linum, are used in the manufacture of the ropes and cords. Okay, so the fibers which are used for the commercial important examples from the cannabis plants and flax plants, they are used for the manufacture of the ropes. Okay, and then the structure is of the phloem fibers are the cells are elongated, having interlocked ends. The cell wall is thick lignified with the pits. These pits may be simple or broader. Okay, so in phloem of sclerenchyma, the pits are broader. The protoplast on the maturity loses the fibers, okay, and they become dead. These fibers may be septate or aseptate at the maturity. They occur in groups and they are cylindrical in shape. Usually, the phloem fibers give mechanical support to the tissues and organs. The bast fibers of the jute, hemp, and cannabis flux are obtained after retting the plants in the water and used for making the ropes, twins, threads, etc. Okay, so these are the functions of the phloem sclerenchyma. So, what are the functions of the phloem? They help in conduction of the foods like organic food materials and other substances, like they store starch, tannins, resins. They helps in the translocation of the food materials. They also help in conducting the food materials. They help in pressure gradients. They maintain the pressure gradient of the cells in the same tubes. The main function is to conduct the food in the plants. Okay, so they transport the prepared food materials such as carbohydrates, proteins, in the downward direction to the roots, and storage regions are also there in this, as well as they move the food towards the upward direction to the growing regions. Hope you guys understood the functions of the phloem as well as the complex permanent tissue. So in complex permanent tissue, you studied about the xylem elements and the phloem elements and their structure as well as the functions. Thank you.